friends who had, over the years, included a great number of the world's most beautiful women, some of them royalty, some of them film stars, many of them inconveniently married to other men. Shouldering into a long robe of navy silk, Stanfield moved out under the awning of the balcony to watch Francesca disembark. Luciano stood in his starched white jacket at the end of the dock, bowing and scraping, extending his hand to La Signorina as she managed to step deftly ashore without incident, despite the choppy water and the bobbing riva. Sprezzatura, Francesca called it, the art of making the difficult look easy. She always behaved as if she were being watched, and, of course, she always was. Not only Stanfield watched from the shadows of his balcony, but also everyone, sipping aperitifs or acqua minerale and munching antipasti on the gritty's floating terrace, stared at the famous face and the figure of the extravagantly beautiful blonde film star in the yellow linen suit. Luciano, smiling, offered to take her single bag, a large, fire-engine-red Hermes pouch that hung from her shoulder by a strap, but she refused, pushing his hand away abruptly and snapping at him. Odd, Stanfield thought. He'd never seen Francesca snap at anyone, especially Luciano, the soul of beneficent charm. Foul humor? She was 6 hours late. Hell, 6 hours of sitting on your backside at Rome Fiumicino Airport would be enough to put anyone in a bad mood. Stanfield watched the top of Francesca's blonde head disappear beneath his balcony balustrade and took a deep breath, inhaling both the scent of the damp marble within the room and the smell of springtime marsh that came off the canal. Soon his room would be filled with the scent of Chanel No. 19. He had known she would not dare look up and catch his eye, and he had not been disappointed. He smiled. He was still smiling, thinking of Francesca's backside, when there came a soft knocking at the heavy wooden door. "Caro," she said as he pulled it open to admit her. "I'm so sorry, darling. Scusa." Stanfield's reply was to gather her up into his arms, inhale her, and waltz her across the floor. There was a champagne bucket full of mostly melted ice, 2 upside-down glasses, and a half-empty bottle of Paul Roget Winston Churchill standing by the window. Putting her down, he plucked a single flute from the bucket and handed it to her, and then filled the glass with the foaming amber liquid. She downed it in one draught and held the glass out for more. "Thirsty, darling?" Stanfield asked, refilling her glass and pouring one for himself. "It was, what do you call it, a fucking nightmare." "Si, un fortuito disastro," Stanfield said with a smile. "All part of the glamour of the tryst, the illicit liaison, my dear Francesca. The endless obstacles the gods delight in placing between the two venal lovers, traffic jams, rotten weather, the suspicious spouse, the vagaries of Italian airlines. Now, what happened to you, anyway? You were invited for lunch." "Caro, don't be angry with me. It was not my fault. The stupid director, Vittorio, he would not let me leave the set for 2 hours past the time he promised. And then it was a vagary with the stupid Alitalia. And then—" "Shh," Stanfield said, putting a finger to her infinitely desirable red lips. He pulled a small gilded chair away from the window, sat, and said, "Turn around. Let me look at your backside." Francesca obeyed and stood quietly with her back to him, sipping her third glass of champagne. The dying rays of light off the canal played with the taut curve of her hips and the cleft of her celebrated buttocks. "Bella, bella, bella," Stanfield whispered. He emptied the balance of the cold wine into his glass and, without taking his eyes off the woman, picked up the phone and ordered another bottle. "Caro?" the woman asked after the click of the receiver in its cradle had punctuated what had become a long few moments of silence. "Tiptoes," he said, and watched the fetching rise of her calf muscles as she giggled and complied. He had taught her the word tiptoes as soon as they'd met, and it had become one of her favorite words. She flung her blonde hair around, twisting her head and gazing down at him over her shoulder with those enormous brown doe eyes which, up on the silver screen, had reduced men the world over into quivering masses of helpless, dumbstruck protoplasm. "I have to pee," she announced, "like a race course." "Horse," Stanfield said. "Race horse." He smiled and nodded his head, and Francesca walked across to the bathroom, pulling the door closed behind her. "Christ," Stanfield said to himself.